Hi everyone. In this video, let's solve Leetcode problem number 3. The problem states that given a string S, find the length of the longest substring without repeating characters. For example, for this input string, the answer is 3. This is because the longest substring for this input string can be ABC or BCA or CAB or ABC. As you notice, all of these substrings without repeating characters are of length 3, and hence the answer is 3. Now, the simplest solution would be to find all substrings without repeating characters and then find the length of the longest substring among them. For example, let's find all the substrings that start with the first letter A. So let's take the first two letters. Obviously, there are no repeating characters, and hence the max length at this point is 2. Now let's proceed further and include the next character, which is C. So now this substring ABC has no repeating characters, and hence the max length is 3. Now if we include the next character, we see that the letter A is getting repeated. So obviously this is not a valid substring, and hence the longest substring that starts at the first character without repeating characters is 3. Now let's repeat the experiment for the second character and let's find the substring that starts with B. So BC again is a valid substring, but then the length is 2, which is less than the max length. So we move on and include the next character. And this substring is a valid substring, but then it's same as the max length. It's not longer than the current max length. So let's say include the next character. Now we see that the letter B is repeated. So we stop here and then move on to finding the substring that starts with the third character. So let's repeat. And now CA again is a valid substring, but then it's shorter than the current max length. CAB is a valid substring and is of same length as of the current max length. Now if we include the next character, we see that it has a repeating character. So we just stop here and then continue the same exercise on the fourth character now. So AB again valid substring but shorter than the current max length. ABC is a valid substring without repeating characters, and there's no need to update the max length because this is same as the current max length. Now if we include the next character, we see that letter B is getting repeated. So we stop here and then move on to the fifth character in our input string. So let's start with the letter B. So if you see BC is a valid substring, but then the next character, if we include that, that comes with a repeating character. So we move on to the letter C now. And CB again is a valid substring, but shorter than the current max length. So if we include the next character, we see that is getting repeated. The letter B is getting repeated. So this is not a valid substring. And the last two characters again, this is not a valid substring. So we move on. And finally, we have a substring of B, which is shorter than the current max length. So this brute force solution, finding the substring is a linear operation, but then we'll have to repeat the linear operation for all the input characters. So the time complexity for our solution is big O of n square. We can optimize the solution by a sliding window technique. So the idea is to use a right pointer and a left pointer. Increase the right pointer if the substring doesn't contain any repeating characters, and increase the left pointer if we find any repeating characters. This will be clear when we go through the explanation. So to start with, the right and left pointer points to the first character, and the substring is just A. So the max length is 1 because there's no repeating character in our current substring. Now let's assume that our bottom arrow mark is the right pointer and the top arrow mark here is the left pointer. So currently there are no repeating characters, so we are just going to increase the right pointer or move the right pointer to the next character. Once we move that, now the current substring is AB and there are no repeating characters, and the length of this substring is greater than our previous max length, so we update the max length to 2. And because there are no repeating characters, we move our right pointer again. And now the current substring ABC has no repeating characters. So we move on, we update the max length and update our right pointer to point to the next character. Now, if we move this, we notice that there are repeating characters. Whenever there are repeating characters in the substring, we're just going to move the left pointer. So let's move our left pointer. Now we see that the substring doesn't have any repeating characters, but the max length is 3 and the current substring has a length of 3. So there's nothing to update. We simply move the right pointer. And when we move the right pointer, the substring now contains a duplicate character. Because we have a repeating character here, we are just going to move the left pointer. And again, this substring is of same length of as that of our max length. And there are no repeating characters, so we're just going to move the right pointer. Now we see a repeating character. So whenever there's a repeating character, we're just going to move the left pointer. And the current substring, again, it's of same length as that of our max length. So there's nothing to update. We just move the right pointer. And when we move the right pointer, the current substring has repeating characters. So again, whenever there's a repeating character, we're just going to move the left pointer. The new substring, after moving the left pointer, also contains a duplicate characters or repeating characters. So we're just going to move the left pointer again. Okay, now this new substring CB doesn't have any repeating characters, but then it is shorter than the max length. So we are just going to move the right pointer without updating anything. When we move the right pointer, we see that there are duplicate characters or repeating characters. So we just move the left pointer. And even with the and even after moving the left pointer, the new substring has repeating characters. So we are just going to move the left pointer again. And the current substring, which is just a letter B, has no repeating characters, but it is shorter than the max length. And since the right pointer already reached the last character of our input string, there's no more characters to visit. So our code completes, and then the result is just the current value of max length, which is 3. Now, if we notice this optimized solution, we are just moving the right and left pointers one time across the entire string, which is just a linear operation. And hence the time complexity for this sliding window technique is big O of n. Let's move on to the Leetcode window to solve the problem and see how we can implement this. So we need to have a structure to hold all the visiting characters. That way it is easy to find whether the character is already there in the substring or not. I'm just going to use a hash set for this because it's a constant time retrieval. So I'll just use hash set to add all the characters that we are going to visit whenever we move the right pointer. And let's have a integer variable. This is going to hold the max length. To start with, the default value is just 0, and then we need 2 pointers, the left pointer and the right pointer. Both of them are going to point to 0th index to start with. And I'm just going to have a while loop that will run as long as my right pointer is within the string's length. So inside the loop, we are just going to do two things. One, if the character that we are visiting is already there in the hash set, we're just going to move the left pointer. If not, we are just going to move the right pointer, and whenever we move the right pointer, we are just going to update the result. Okay, so if my character set or the hash set does not contain my right pointer, yeah, s of right pointer just points to the character that is pointed by the right pointer. So if my set doesn't contain this character, which means we are visiting a new character and the current substring doesn't have any repeating characters. So first thing, we are just going to add it to the set, and we are just going to update the result. If my result is longer than the previous result, so we are just going to update that. We're going to compare result with the new length, and the length is going to be right pointer minus left pointer plus 1. And we simply update the right pointer to the next character. Now, if the character set contains the new character that is pointed by the right pointer, we're just going to adjust the left pointer. Before we adjust the left pointer, we need to remove it from the character set. And we are going to remove the character that is pointed by the left pointer because we are going to adjust the left pointer. And bump up the value of left pointer. And that's it. We just return, once we are done with the while loop, we are going to return the result. Yes. Right, let's submit our code. You can see all the test cases passed. Thanks for watching.